If you don't already know about Alan Turing, you should, because he was an amazing person. If you've ever watched The Imitation Game, you probably already know a little bit about who I'm talking about. And if you have not watched The Imitation Game, then please do. It's an amazing movie. Alan Turing was born in June of 1912, and his Wikipedia page looks like this. It says he was an English mathematician, computer scientist, logician, cryptanalyst, philosopher, and theoretical biologist. So he did a lot of stuff. And he started very early. He was first enrolled in the school when he was 6, and immediately his teachers noticed that he was a very intelligent child. In 1927, he was already solving advanced mathematical problems without ever having studied elementary calculus. And in the following year, at 16, he found the works of Einstein, and he just got it. While at school, he ended up forming a friendship with a fellow student called Christopher Colin Morcom, who is often described as his first love. And then things start getting sad, because in 1930, Christopher died of bovine tuberculosis, which I didn't even know was a thing, but apparently he got it after drinking infected milk. And this makes things even more tragic, in my opinion. Because if someone has tuberculosis and they cough on you, you know you were in danger of getting tuberculosis. But now if you just drink milk and a few years later you develop tuberculosis and die, I mean, that's just tragic. You were not expecting that. And obviously that made Turing very sad. But how did he deal with that? Did he just lock himself in a dark room and ate ice cream for the rest of the year? No, he just worked harder and became even more of a genius. And then, what you probably already know if you've watched the movie, during the Second World War, he was invited to help with the ciphers of the messages that the Germans were sharing. So between 1945 and 1947, he lived at Hampton, London, working on the design of the automatic computer engine, which would eventually truly help win the war, because what they did was intercepting codes that the Germans were sending to each other, so the Allies could know what the Nazis were planning beforehand. Is that enough amazing for you? Because if it's not, that's how he invented the idea of the modern computer that we have today, and the whole computer science. And his awesomeness does not stop there. It was not enough for him to be just a genius. He also had to be a very talented athlete. He was a very talented long-distance runner. And sometimes when he needed to be in meetings, he just ran like 64 kilometers over to London. And I can't even imagine running to the bakery, let alone 64 kilometers. And by the way, there is a bakery right on the corner of my street. And he wasn't just good, okay? He was Olympic material good. In 1948, he actually tried out for the British Olympic team, but he had an injury and that's why he couldn't get in. Still, it turned out that in his tryout, he was only 11 minutes lower than the actual British silver medalist. So before even getting on the team, only on his tryout, he was already almost as good as the second best runner in the whole Olympic Games. And was that enough for Alan Turing, I ask? No, it was not. In 1951, he decided he wanted to study mathematical biology. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds super smart. He was apparently interested in morphogenesis, which is the development of patterns and shapes in biological organisms. And who even has the brain power to think of that after running a marathon? And then things just go downhill, because in 1952, Alan Turing started a relationship with another man because he was gay. And that was a problem back then, because people had nothing better to do than to judge other people's sexuality. What happened is that his boyfriend's house was robbed, and they decided to go to court for it. And that was a mistake, apparently, because if you were gay in 1952, you couldn't sue for being robbed, because that put you in danger of going to jail yourself. During the investigation, they admitted to having a homosexual relationship, and then they were charged with gross indecency. So Alan was given the choice of either going to jail or going through chemical castration. And he chose probation and taking this hormonal treatment to reduce his libido. He was also no longer allowed to go back to working to the government. On the 8th of June of 1954, his housekeeper found him dead in his house at the age of 41. The cause of his death was cyanide poisoning, and some people debate whether or not that was a suicide. Since he worked with chemical substances and with cyanide, his mother believes that he was just careless someday and that he accidentally either ingested or inhaled cyanide, and that's why he died. But some people also theorize that he did that he left things in his lab open so that his mother could think that he died of something else other than suicide. Some people also say that he was dealing pretty well with everything that happened and with the hormonal treatment, but it's not really something you can know because sometimes people just act as if they were okay with things and deep inside they're not. And not that depression ever really needs a reason, but if there was ever a reason to be depressed, I think that's it. And this seems to be a really sad ending to the life of a really amazing person. But even after death, he ended up doing some good. Because in 2009, a British programmer started a petition to ask the government to pardon his crimes and to actually apologize for his persecution as a homosexual. On December 24th of 2013, the Queen signed a pardon for Turing's conviction for gross indecency, which arrived about 60 years too late, but still, it happened. And in September of 2016, the government announced that they wanted to extend this retroactive pardon to all people who were condemned for being homosexuals. So in 2017, a law came out that is commonly known as the Alan Turing Law, in which all accusations of homosexuality as gross indecency and as a crime were pardoned, and so these people, even years after their deaths, now have their names cleared. I mean, it doesn't really affect the lives of the people who suffer through it, but it is great to know that nowadays Alan Turing and Oscar Wilde are no longer considered felons for just being who they were. And I really wanted to record this video because we're right at the end of the Pride Month and I had done nothing about it, so I just wanted to tell you about some really awesome guy who happened to be a homosexual and who suffered unnecessarily and had his life cut short just for being who he was. Knowing that, we can reconsider how we're prejudiced against certain people and maybe do something to change that. If you can do anything to help people who are suffering from this sort of prejudice, we can actually make a difference. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you liked it and I hope you enjoyed knowing about all the awesomeness of Alan Turing, and I will hopefully see you in some next video.